Arkansas once again as we meet up with the cave doctor, Dr. Dave Thomas of Lyon College in Batesville, who somehow has managed to talk us into venturing into a cave full of water. Yeah, should be interesting. Spring-fed and full of salamanders makes this particular cave quite unique. So for obvious reasons, Dr. Dave, we're not going to disclose the location of this particular cave. This segment is for scientific purposes only. And tell us about this cave like this that is filled with spring water and all the creatures that we're seeing.
Okay. Actually, like many springs in Arkansas, often spring water passes through caves before it reaches the surface. In this case, the spring of this cave comes out below the cave itself, but the water is flowing all the way through here. And so it means that as we're going through, we're in the water for most of the time. This is about the only dry part of the trip you're going to see. But this particular spring carries a lot of invertebrates, what we call amphipods, and that provides food for these guys. So we've got lots and lots of salamanders here. It is not unusual to find more than 100 salamanders on one of these trips. Wow. And this cave is only 400 meters long, so this is the largest concentration of salamanders that I personally know of. We tend to see the cave salamanders, the bright orange ones here near the entrance. As we move further in, we'll still see them throughout the cave, but as we get deeper in, they start to give way to grotto salamanders. And these are the ones that add no pigment. They'll look kind of white or pink. And as they age, their eyes get grown over with tissue, and so they become blind. They're not born that way. In fact, if you look at the little tiny babies, the grotto salamander, the cave salamanders here, and some of the others, they all look pretty much the same. It's not until they grow up that it's really easy to tell the difference.
This is one of the reasons why we're not disclosing the location of this cave. It's just, I mean, just ruthless, just senseless stuff like this. Somebody got in here a few years ago and just decided to spray it all up without no regard for a cave system. It's awful, absolutely awful.
This is my first time in this particular cave, but throughout the summer and last summer I've been able to go with Dr. Thomas on these little expeditions. And I guess my favorite part about coming in here would probably be seeing all the life, whether it be salamanders or, I haven't seen any bats this year, but bats are always cool to find, but it's a great way to spend the summer, I'll say that.
My third or fourth time being in here. I've been caving with Dr. Thomas for the last 2 years. And what I really like about this cave is the amount of life that's in here. And all the other caves we go to, there's not as many organisms. I mean, you walk in and you counted 20 salamanders right off the bat. So it's very fun to be here and to see all the little creatures swimming around, and I really enjoy that.
Well, I teach photography and digital art at Lyon College, so I first came along with Dave on one of his trips last fall. We were doing a service project, cleaning out a bunch of garbage out of the cave, and I was just kind of taken with, it's like a different world down here. You lose all sense of time, and space seems different, and it's like you're on the surface of another planet almost. So I decided this would be a good opportunity to explore a little bit and try to get some interesting pictures. So I'm down here with my 1966 Nick and Nose camera.
All right.
And a few waterproof lights, seeing what I can get.
Yeah, I like your your underwater lighting over there.
Yeah, just doing that a trial run today.
Cave salamander is one species, And actually, it's a little bit of a misnomer because it doesn't spend its whole life here. Well, you find them in caves, but they'll go out to the surface too. We have grotto salamanders as well, long-tail and dark-sided salamanders. You'll see some of those, they're the yellowish ones that look like cave salamanders. That's two subspecies. We get the western slimy salamander, the southern redback salamander, the Ozark zigzag salamander. Those three tend to be found back toward the entrance. They use the cave mainly as a shelter rather than as a place to hunt and live.
I didn't expect there to be so many caves when I came to Batesville for college, and seeing all the different environments and all the organisms that I didn't even know existed, and it's actually really cool, a really cool experience. And you have to work hard to get here. It takes effort, physical strength, and it's very enjoyable for me. It's like a challenge. I feel like Indiana Jones.
There you go.
It's a lot of fun, and you also learn so much.
So what are your aspirations for your future?
I want to be a professor in environmental science and teach and do research and find a way to save our planet. So
There you go.
10.
It's in this crevice.
For first-time students exploring this Salamander Cave, Dr. Dave Thomas has an initiation going through a narrow passageway that's mostly filled with water.
You're in. Okay. And remember, there is a way out. All right. The screams you hear is just the pool water.
Oh, baby! Oh! This is awful.
Fog out the place here. Okay, so now we want. This is actually really shallow today.
Oh, man!
Yes, off into the cave abyss, never to be seen again.
I love caving. This is where I draw the line. Sorry.
It didn't take long, though, for the return of those cave salamanders, swimmers.
It's actually deep there. Take a swim for a minute.
How was the cave swim?
Refreshing. You get water arms out of that lost one. Can't reach it now.
There he is. First time. How was the cave swim?
Freezing!
You're officially initiated. I've always said the wonders of the natural state, not only above ground, but underground as well. A big chunk of Arkansas's history during the first 100 years of statehood from 1836 to 1936 was, of course, the plantation culture. And an ideal location to experience that history firsthand is the Scott Plantation Settlement. The Scott Plantation Settlement is a relocation of 25 structures that were on working plantations around the Scott area.
On this particular day, students from Ward Central Elementary paid a visit and watched as the pages of their history books came alive.
What they did is they came up with a commissary where anybody that worked for them could sign on the line and get stuff, and then when they sold the crops, they would pay their bill at the end of the year. The bad thing about that was if at the end of the year, if you couldn't pay your bill, you weren't going anywhere. So that was not as bad as slavery, but it was still bad because you really couldn't go anywhere. Anybody know what these are? What are they?
You clean your clothes with them.
That's what they used to use, isn't it? Okay, when they first started, they made them out of brass. When you look at this cash register, the most expensive thing on it, you can ring up $5.99 is the most you can ring up on it. And when you look at the numbers, the pennies are all worn off. Now somebody replaced a 5, but the pennies are worn off. It tells you how cheap stuff was. And this is a part when kids, usually when they're around, when I do this, they've never done that. Pick you a dollar amount. See, that's dollars. Okay, 260. Push those down real hard. Okay. This is an example of a church from the 1920s. We had some local pastors who showed us how their churches were set up back in the day. And that bench actually would be up on the platform. Has anybody ever heard of a moaner's bench?
And how often do you get to try out a church pump organ? And at the Plantation School, you can find the original iPad or tablet, the old chalkboard slate.
I forgot to tell you guys something about this school. This school here was for and they would have been poor kids. When they got to be 10 or 11 years old, that was all the school for them. They went out and worked in the fields like the grown-ups did.
Blacksmith shops were of course essential on plantations for repairing equipment and shoeing horses and mules.
See there? It's putting extra oxygen. When you have the wooden coals, they get really hot. They get hot enough to make the coal catch. Then the coal catches and it gets really hot.
The keelboat is a representation of the type of vessel that brought the early plantation owners to the Scott area and was also used in another famous excursion.
Okay, the Lewis and Clark expedition, the Louisiana Purchase, we bought a bunch of land as a country that we didn't know what we bought. Nope, it had never been surveyed or anything. So Lewis and Clark were surveyors, and they traveled, they went up looking at the land, making, they had journals, they surveyed the property, and they had one of these. This is a keelboat.
And so, after their visit, we had to ask the students this question. Do you think you would have liked to have lived back 150, 180 years ago and lived in this type of environment?
Mm-mm.
Not too appealing, huh?
No.
You think you would have liked to have lived back then?
I would say maybe because I think I would kind of like it because the schoolhouses were kind of amazing, but except for the paddling and that stuff. I learned that people didn't use stuff that we use now. And my favorite thing was the church, and I like church.
Do you think you would have liked to have lived this kind of life 150 years ago? Yeah, not so much. A history lesson learned firsthand, and to be grateful for living in this day and time. Throughout my lifetime, I went fishing for a lot of different fish, but never for gar. So we hooked up with our good buddy Shane Goodner, who's going to take us to his favorite gar hole on the South Fork of the Ouachita River near Mount Ida. And I have my gar cam. Long-nosed gar is what we're after versus the larger alligator gar.
These fish are the Lepisosteus osseus. That is the genus and species name for the long-nosed gar, commonly referred to as the needle-nose. There are several different ways we're going to fish for these gar today, but gar being an apex predator in this river, feed on live bait. Now these are little long-eared sunfish and green sunfish. This is just a small perch in the sunfish family. These gar really do well with live bait. Now Chuck, when you're messing with these gar, I've had them on here for 20 minutes before and set the hook and it missed them, because they'll just run with it without swallowing it. That's unique to any fish species that you'll go after. But it takes time now to hook these fish. Just because they grab the bait and take off, if you set the hook as soon as the fish grabs the bait, 9 times out of 10 you're going to lose him, because he's grabbing it to secure it in his mouth and he's going to run with it. That's the tendency of all gar, whether it's the top of the food chain or the bottom. They're going to grab the bait, they're going to run with it. You have to know that when you're fishing live bait. If you don't, you will have 0 hookups.
Which is why most people don't want to mess with trying to catch gar.
He's coming. See him come up after it. Now, okay, he grabbed it right there. Now, see how he's just running with it in his mouth and not attempting to swallow it? That's the very nature of these fish. They bite the bait, secure it in their mouth, and then they run with it. That's just their nature. But this is common, whether it's an alligator gar, long nose, short nose, spotted gar, they all bite the same. They all run with the bait. It's their very habit, their very nature to run with the bait before they set the hook. There we go. That's cool. He's got a hold of it right there. See him backing up? Wham! How about that for a strike? Look at him, Chuck. Look at him just sitting there with it, turning it. Woo, that's a big one.
Finally, after about 2.5 hours of playing around,
Look at that one.
Look at that, baby.
You gotta watch them, they'll get you.
and got him.
Now, the Native Americans in Vermont, the Abenaki tribe, referred to the long-nosed gar as the chazaroo. They sustained themselves on the meat of this fish, used the ganoid scales as arrowheads, and took the teeth and carved tattoos, which is very interesting to me, because that doesn't look like it'd be that pleasant. But that Native Americans are big about using every piece of the food that they take. We need to ease this bad boy back down in the lake. There have been gar species on this earth for 100 million years. That's a real survivor right there. And you know, while we're on the subject, I really get aggravated when I hear gar and drum referred to as a nuisance or trash fish. Mm-hmm. You know, there are no people on this earth that know more about what should be going on than Mother Nature herself. If those fish didn't have any purpose on this earth, they'd have been exterminated years ago like the dinosaurs. That fish has been in these waters for 100 million years. Who are they to say that that fish has no purpose on this earth? Now, I understand that the fish is not the best looking fish in the world, but if you're a fisherman you appreciate the fact that that's an apex predator in these waters. It doesn't eat its weight in fish every day and go around damaging fish populations like some of the fish I could name in our area lakes do. But that's another subject. Those fish live in harmony with everything in these waters. You just saw a big bass a little while within a few feet of a gar that could have killed him anytime he wanted to. It's a harmonious relationship. It's predator-prey, but everything in this river lives in harmony together. The gar has a place on this earth. They're a noble fish, and as you're going to see in part 2 of this show, they're very good to eat.
And so, with a few of Shane's buddies, we had us a gar fry.
Let's go over here. Let's do this. This is gar, guys. Look at that.
Nice white texture. It's more like a meat than it is a fish.
All right, tasting gar for the very first time. Looking at it kind of reminds me of like a pork chop texture almost. Oh yeah. Aye! Guarantee. Some of the more picturesque campsites throughout the natural state are those that were built by the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, back during the 1930s. And one of them happens to be Camp Clearfork, west of Hot Springs. And every summer, something really special takes place here during a unique hands-on youth summer ecology camp.
So this one is actually a baby of a venomous type that actually came down by the lake. This is a cottonmouth, and they do something called caudal luring. They'll actually wiggle their tail
Like a worm.
like a worm, and here comes a little frog. Oh, look at that little worm.
It all began in the late 70s by Edith and Henry Hallberg, the Arkansas Audubon Society Hallberg Ecology Camp. Since then, more than 3,000 kids have learned about everything from snakes to snails.
And this is a fairly large species that we have right here. Can everybody see the eyes on the land snail? You see the eyes sticking out? There's two eyes on long tentacles like that, sticking out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that I found him on a leaf.
That's right.
These are the parents, these are best beetles, and this is their baby. And so what's really cool about these guys is that they will raise their young.
Can we put him in a petri dish?
Yeah, so let's pull them out. So this is the larval stage, so this is a baby beetle.
It's a grub.
And then
Can I have the big one?
this is the mom or dad. Sometimes you can get them to squeak, but these are wonderful guys to start out holding if you are uncomfortable with holding insects. Yeah.
Will they not bite you or anything?
No.
The biting question is asked often.
Can it bite you?
Well, I could bite you too, but
No, it's way too small.
yeah.
Yeah, then you'd be a cannibal.
Keratin, they add a new rattle segment every time they shoot. It is a rattle segment.
We not only try to open their eyes to the natural world around them, but we also try, there's kids that are more of the city kids that don't get experience simple stuff as canoeing, and so this camp we try to open their eyes to that and get them their toes dipped in the water a little bit, and so we get them into the outdoors a little bit, so hopefully they go on, they're like, Mom, Dad, I tried this new thing, you guys should come float with us or come hike with us, and get them experiencing the outdoors.
I've had great fun here. I've learned so much here. I've learned about aquatic biology, botany, and all types of other stuff. I learned that there's life all around us, even when we can't see it. In aquatic biology, we got a water sample from the lake, and we looked under a microscope, and there were all tons of microscopic organisms living around us and in our bodies.
I learned some new birds. I learned the names of some new birds that I didn't know before, and I learned this interesting fact that a hawk can live up to like 28 years. I didn't know that. I thought it could only live up to like 16 or 17 years. And I've also learned about some bugs and some snakes and stuff. So,
Yeah, how'd you like those snakes?
I mean, the only thing I'm afraid about is if they bite me or something, but they're pretty cool looking, and so yeah.
I like to say that being a scientist, I don't believe in magic, but I think this camp is magical. And you get just the right mix of instructors and the right mix of people that cook the food and the setting and the right attitude. They come away changed forever, no doubt. And I've seen young people who only come here 1 year, and I run into them later, and they are doing jobs in nature. They are a park interpreter. They're going off to another country to study insects. They're studying saw-whet owls. So we definitely have an impact on young people.
Since Camp Clearfork is a U.S. Forest Service facility, it is available for general public use, family reunions, civic and church groups. Just contact the Womble Ranger District in Mount Ida. And to view this episode again or any one of our others, visit our website at aetn.org/exploringarkansas. And don't forget to like us on our Facebook fan page. And we'll see you again the next time for another exciting adventure on Exploring Arkansas.